first two classes, we've been examining the nature and necessity of vision. Now, in this clip, I want to summarize our learning for the first 2 weeks. And in order to do it in a way that I don't just repeat myself, I want to look at a related issue, arguments for vision. And I want to zero in on one paragraph from one of the readings. And I ask you just your patience because it's a relatively long quote. It comes from the first article, Envisioning Jewish Education. And in this paragraph, more than in any other place in Fox's writings, there's an attempt to provide arguments for vision. And what does he state here? Why do we emphasize vision? Without a guiding purpose, an educational system is bound to be scattered and incoherent, incapable of consecutive effort, unable either to grasp the possibilities of effective action or to avoid the obstacles in its path. And the continuation of the quote, lacking a directive guide to the future, the system becomes repetitive and uninspired, prey to past habit, incapable of justifying itself to new generations of our youth in the worlds they will inhabit. What the skeptic is responding to, among other things, is the sense that current educational practice is too often spiritless. In these 3 sentences, Fox is offering 3 different arguments for vision. And let's look at this in a schematic way. In this fundamental paragraph, in these 3 sentences, Fox is providing 3 different arguments for vision. On the one hand, he's arguing that vision is a means of directing our educational practices. Secondly, he looks at vision as a source of renewal, a way to update our thinking about Jewish education. And thirdly, he's arguing that a vision can inspire Jewish educators. Let's start with vision as direction. And here I'm going to return to the quote, to Fox's quote, to the first sentence, which I've highlighted in blue. Without a guiding purpose, an educational system is bound to be scattered and incoherent, incapable of consecutive effort. Fox is making a very, very important point. As educators, in a typical day, we make tens, perhaps even hundreds of educational decisions. And these educational practices are embedded within these educational practices are ideas, are conceptions about the ends and practices of our educational efforts. And if we're not reflective, if we're not mindful of the guiding purposes of our educational practices, then our educational efforts will be scattered. We'll work at cross purposes to ourselves. And this is particularly true in an educational institution. You have various educators who each have different purposes. If there's not a collective understanding of the guiding purposes of the educational institution, then the educational efforts will be ineffective. And therefore, to direct all our activities towards one end that is agreed upon by the various stakeholders, we need agreed upon vision for Jewish education. And therefore, educational vision directs us, makes Jewish education effective and proper. Now, the second reason that vision is so important for Fox is that vision acts as a source of renewal. And this is underscored in the second sentence in the quote, which I've highlighted in red. Lacking a directive guide to the future, the system becomes repetitive and uninspired, prey to past habit. What Fox is getting at is that often as Jewish educators, we are mired in initial assumptions. We continue almost in a monotonous way our conceptions of Jewish education that we acquired early on in our training, in our professional involvement. But often, particularly in responses to new obstacles, new challenges, our thinking undergoes adaptation. And therefore, if we have a vision, and for Fox, a vision isn't a static entity, it's dynamic. We always have to rethink the purposes and the ends of education. And if we have an opportunity to do this kind of rethinking, then our vision will adapt itself. Our Jewish educational efforts will be updated. They will be renewed. And therefore, vision allows us to adapt ourselves to new situations, to new challenges. That's the second element of vision. Lastly, for Fox, vision is a source of inspiration. And here I'm going to go to the third sentence of the Fox quote, which is highlighted in green. Current educational practice is too often spiritless. That is, often as Jewish educators, we are overwhelmed in dealing with technical issues that seem technical in nature, and we forget how significant education is. We forget that education is all about profound ideas, values, and goals. But when we deal with vision, vision brings to the forefront the notion that what animates us are these foundational values and ends, and Jewish education is inspirational. So just to review, we've encountered three arguments for vision. Firstly, vision guides all our educational efforts to its intended ends. Vision can assist in renewing and updating our educational approach. And thirdly, work on vision can help us inspire and remind us that our educational practices are animated by profoundly important goals. And therefore we see why vision has to be the foundation of all Jewish educational reform and central to developing us as effective educators. Thank you very much.